I remember the exact moment my life ended, even though I was still breathing. It wasn't the night my company burned to the ground, or the day I saw my wife walk into another man's arms. It was the moment I realized the two people I trusted most had been planning my downfall from the very beginning. My name is Daniel Carter, and this is the story of how I lost everything: my company, my marriage, and the man I once called my brother, and how a single mistake exposed a truth they thought would stay buried forever. Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. I built my life from nothing. I wasn't born into wealth or privilege, and nobody handed me success. Every dollar I earned came from long nights, missed holidays, and sacrifices people around me never fully understood. By the time I turned 38, I was the CEO of a fast-growing logistics company based in Chicago. We handled contracts that moved goods across states, and everything was finally aligning in my favor. I had a solid team, a respected name in the industry, and a future that looked secure. But more than all of that, I had Emily. She came into my life at a time when I had almost given up on love, and she made me believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have both success and peace. Emily wasn't someone I met randomly. She was introduced to me by my closest friend, Mark Reynolds. Mark and I had known each other for over 10 years. We met when I was still trying to get my company off the ground. And he stood by me through some of the hardest moments of my journey. When I couldn't afford staff, he worked alongside me. When deals fell through, he stayed up with me to find solutions. I trusted him with my business, my finances, and eventually, my personal life. So when he told me he had someone special I should meet, I didn't hesitate. He spoke highly of Emily, describing her as kind, intelligent, and grounded, and from the moment I met her, everything he said seemed true. Emily had a calm presence that made you feel understood. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, it felt meaningful. Our connection grew quickly. Within months, we were inseparable, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to slow down and enjoy life beyond work. Mark was always around, often joining us for dinners or casual outings, and it felt natural because he had been part of my life long before Emily came into it. Looking back now, I realize how easily I accepted everything, how I never questioned the closeness between them because I believed in both of them without doubt. Our relationship moved fast, but it felt right. A year later, I proposed, and Emily said yes without hesitation. The wedding was simple but beautiful, surrounded by friends and colleagues who had watched my journey from the beginning. Mark stood beside me as my best man, smiling like he always did, giving speeches about loyalty, friendship, and how proud he was of the life I had built. At that time, there was nothing in his words that made me uncomfortable. Nothing felt out of place. If anything, I felt grateful to have a friend like him and a partner like Emily. And I thought I had reached a point in life where everything made sense. Marriage brought a new kind of motivation into my life. I worked harder, not just for myself, but for us. I wanted to create stability, comfort, and a future that Emily would never have to worry about. The company expanded, and we began handling larger contracts. Mark was still deeply involved in operations, managing key parts of the business while I focused on growth and strategy. I trusted him completely, which allowed me to step back from certain details. Emily, on the other hand, stayed mostly out of the business, but she supported me in ways that felt genuine at the time. She would check in on me during stressful days, encourage me when things got tough, and remind me why I started in the first place. Then came the night everything changed. It was a regular evening, nothing unusual. I had left the office earlier than usual to have dinner with Emily. Mark stayed back at the company, saying he needed to finish up some reports and lock up afterward. Around midnight, my phone rang. I still remember the panic in the voice on the other end. It was one of our security staff shouting about a fire. By the time I got there, flames had already consumed a large part of the building. Fire trucks surrounded the area, sirens filled the air, and people stood outside watching as years of my hard work turned into smoke. I stood there helpless, unable to process what I was seeing. Everything inside that building represented my life's effort, my sacrifices, my dreams, and in a matter of hours, it was gone. Mark arrived shortly after, acting just as shocked as everyone else. He kept saying it didn't make sense, that something must have gone wrong. Emily showed up too, holding me as I tried to stay standing. That night I felt broken, but I still had them. I still believed I wasn't alone in this. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever faced. Investigations began, insurance processes started, and I tried to understand how everything could collapse so quickly. Financially, I took a massive hit. Even with insurance, the damage was overwhelming. Contracts were lost, clients pulled out, and rebuilding seemed almost impossible. At home, things started to shift in ways I didn't fully notice at first. Emily became distant. The warmth she once showed began to fade, replaced by irritation and impatience. Small conversations turned into arguments, and the support I once relied on slowly disappeared. And at the same time, Mark's behavior also began to change, though it was more subtle. He was still involved, still helping where he could, but there was something different about him. He became more controlling over certain aspects of the business recovery, often making decisions without consulting me. I brushed it off as stress. We were all dealing with a lot, and I didn't want to create unnecessary tension. But as weeks passed, the distance between me and Emily grew wider. She started spending more time out of the house, giving vague explanations about where she was going. One evening, about a month after the fire, I noticed something that made my chest tighten. Emily received a message while sitting next to me. She quickly turned her phone away, something she had never done before. I didn't say anything, but it stayed in my mind. Then later that night, curiosity and concern got the better of me. When she fell asleep, I checked her phone. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Messages between her and Mark, not just casual conversations, but something deeper, something intimate. My hands shook as I scrolled, trying to understand how this could happen. I confronted her the next morning. At first, she denied everything, but when I showed her the messages, she stopped pretending. There was no apology, no guilt, just silence. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I felt a pain I had never experienced before, a kind of betrayal that went beyond words. But what I didn't know at that moment was that this was only the beginning of the truth. A few days later, everything came to light in a way I never expected. I returned home earlier than usual and heard voices in the living room. Emily and Mark were arguing. I stayed out of sight, listening as their conversation revealed everything they had tried to hide. Mark was angry, accusing Emily of delaying their plan. He talked about money, about leaving the country, about how the fire was supposed to make everything easier. My heart pounded as I realized this wasn't just about betrayal in marriage. This was something much bigger. From that conversation, I learned that their relationship didn't start after the fire. It existed long before I even met Emily. Mark had introduced her to me intentionally. They had planned everything from the beginning, using my trust to get close to my life, my business, and eventually, my finances. The fire wasn't supposed to destroy everything. It was meant to cover a robbery. Mark had left his office unsecured on purpose, allowing hired thieves to break in. But something went wrong that night, and the situation escalated beyond their control. Hearing that truth felt like being hit all over again. Every memory, every moment I thought was real, turned out to be part of a plan I never saw coming. I stepped into the room, and the look on their faces when they saw me told me they knew it was over. There were no excuses this time, no lies that could fix what had been exposed. Everything they had built on deception collapsed in that moment. The aftermath was not easy. Legal actions followed, investigations reopened, and the truth about the fire came out. Mark faced consequences for his actions, and Emily left before everything fully unfolded, disappearing from my life as quickly as she had entered it. I was left with the pieces of a life that had been carefully taken apart by the people I trusted most. Rebuilding didn't happen overnight. It took time, patience, and a level of strength I didn't know I had. I had to start again, not just in business, but in how I saw people and trust. The scars from that experience didn't disappear, but they became reminders of what I survived. I lost everything once, but I didn't lose myself completely. And sometimes, that's the difference between staying broken and finding a way to move forward.